welcome back to Mike and Mission Podcast. My name's Miranda Mori. How are y'all doing today? So, it's been an awful long time since I have been here and recorded something. I think it's been officially 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. 5 weeks, maybe? My iPhone said it was 5 weeks since I last recorded, so it probably has been 5 weeks. And the reason being is I had a obviously, at the end of April, I did have the conference, which you guys saw, which was amazing. For any of my church leaders, I do highly recommend attending the Girl Leader Conference. But yeah, let's just say the enemy has definitely been attacking. And as per usual, what the devil means for harm, God gets the glory. Because he helps us utilize the trials and the tribulations to learn something, to renew ourselves, to get stronger in him. Because as we know, as we are weak, we are then strong in. And I'm not going to go into much detail because as a personal choice, no one has died. I will say that much. But it definitely has been a time of reflection. A time where I can see where the devil really, really wants to stop my family from doing what we've been called to do. To the point where the attacks have been numerous and kind of similar along the lines of all of them, especially of the mind. So yeah. This is where you guys really need to start knowing your enemy. Because he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Now, I'm not saying know your enemy to the point where that's all you focus on is your enemy, because you don't want to get to the point where you're constantly studying about demons or the spiritual realm, and because it says there is a realm, obviously we know, where it's powers and principalities and darkness, and we do not fight against flesh and blood. We fight against powers, principalities. So there's entire realm out there that we can't see, but we definitely can feel, especially through discernment. But we also need to know that none of the attacks, nothing evil or bad comes from God. God is love. And I know everyone will throw out, and I believe I've talked about it before on this podcast, about, well, if you have such a great God, why didn't he protect you? Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Here's the thing. God was there. Things could have been 100 times worse than it was. Things might not have been caught that were caught. Things wouldn't have been revealed if it wasn't for the situation. But none of it was brought on by God. And the enemy definitely robbed my family. And it says in God's word, the living word, that when we recognize something was stolen from us by the enemy, God promises sevenfold will come back, paid by the enemy. We had a ton of plans that we were going to do. Actually, we had planned a vacation, a family vacation, and it was more like a staycation. Like, we were going to get a bunch of things done, start renovating our house. As you guys know, we lost both our animals. I don't know if I told you about my cat, but you guys knew about my dog. So we lost both our animals, and we were like, all right, you know what? Let's just start completely fresh. We're going to redo the entire bottom of the house. We're going to do a big, deep spring clean, get some people in to come replace some things that need to be replaced. And that's what we had planned to do on our vacation. And then the enemy struck. And so none of those things happened. But our God is so good, because now we are stronger as a family. We are leaning more on Him. We're leaning more on His word. Not that we weren't doing that before, but we're doing even more so now. We've had to be able to have great conversations. And again, what the enemy meant for harm, God is using for His glory and His glory alone. So when I said know your enemy, I said know what he does. Recognize what he does. So many times we will think that it's of our choices. Now, I'm not saying some of them aren't. We have natural consequences for our choices. We are all born sinners. That's going to happen. But we also need to know when we have to rebuke and when we have to declare and decree. We don't plead to God. That is Old Testament. We don't have to plead because we are living in the New Testament. We have the power of Jesus Christ. He says we are going to do stuff far beyond what He could do. We have the authority via the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us. So when you said yes to Jesus, you received that power. We have the authority to stomp on the enemy and tell him where to go. I constantly tell my son, stop letting the enemy win in your head. We just had a conversation today. So my son struggles with mental illness. Obviously, he doesn't care I say this. He's very open about it. And the enemy has been attacking him since he was very, very small. My son had his first prophecy at 5 years old. Ever since he really could put a sentence together. And it's very common to see mental health issues with those who are prophets. I struggled with it. My mother struggled with it. And sometimes we still do. Because the enemy doesn't like prophets. Because we are God's messengers. He doesn't, and also, I'm not saying I'm a prophetess or like saying that's my only calling. I use all the gifts. So anybody can be a prophet. I can use the gift of prophecy. But prophecy is something I definitely use more. I use a lot of wisdom and knowledge, but I also use prophecy a lot more out of all the gifts that you're able to use. And my son is so strong in prophecy. Like every single time we have a prayer time in youth group, and we encourage the youth to go and pray over all their fellow youth members, my son is going and prophesying over people. And so, again, it doesn't surprise me that the enemy is coming for his mind. And so today we had a conversation because my son said he saw himself jumping out of a car over a bridge, and he woke up and he's like, Mom, I felt like I committed suicide in my dream. And I was like, okay, let's talk. Now, please don't think I'm not doing everything I can. Trust me. He has a therapist. He has a psychiatrist. It was proven that he did have a chemical imbalance. So yes, there is some physical things that he needs to help him with his mental health, but I also know some is the enemy. I know it is. And today we are having that conversation and talking about his dream and talking about his feelings. And he kept saying that he felt like one part of his brain is very rational and logical and knows right from wrong. He knows that the enemy is a liar. He goes, but then the other half of his brain, he says it feels like it's constantly telling him everything is not right, that he's hated, like he should hate himself, that he's just this awful person. And my son, everyone knows my son he's not that way. He really is not. He loves everybody. Everyone loves him. They adore him. And I looked at him and I said, Christian, I said, why do you keep saying it's your brain? It's not your brain. It's the enemy. And he responded with this. He goes, well, if it's the enemy, then everything in my life has to have some religious context. And I just looked at him. I said, The enemy is the ruler of the earth. We know earth is his domain, but we know the Lord is going to come back to conquer him and take back the earth. But we do not let the enemy tell us that he's not the problem. And I said, I'm like, we do have to live somewhat in a religious context because we are Christians. We fight against powers and principalities. We do not fight against flesh and blood. And some people might think that's crazy. And I'm not saying every single thing on this planet is the enemy. Because like I said, we do have fleshly choices. We do have consequences. Not everything that happens is demonic. Not everything you see on the internet is witchcraft and demons. Some of it, yeah, for sure. But not every trend that comes out, not every crazy saying that comes out is demonic. It's the world. But we have to have discernment of what is and what's not. And that's why we have to get in the Word and stay strong when the attacks come. We've talked about before with Paul, who was shipwrecked 3 times. He went through so many trials and tribulations, in and out of jail, bitten by a poisonous snake, just beaten, died, came back to life. Like, he had trials and tribulations, but he found so much joy in talking about Jesus, the one and true Messiah, and spreading God's. So no matter what you're going through, no matter if the attacks are coming, just know that God's there. He's in your midst. Because I'll admit, there's lately, the enemy, like I said, he was coming after my mind. And of course, he wanted to derail me. You know that. So, and he wanted to derail my family. And prior to this, the enemy was using distraction. And the crazy part, he was using the distraction of what God has plans for me. He gave me a very important subject to focus on in the beginning of the year. And he gave me technically 2. He gave me one literally in January, and then he told me the other one probably end of February that I needed to focus on this year. One turned out to be my life coaching business, and the other one was actually my future husband. Those were the 2 things God told me to focus on this year. And somehow, in the midst of me learning how to become a life coach and starting my life coaching business, like I got my name, I still got some business and stuff to do, but I digress. And I had started praying for my future husband with a book that the Lord brought back into my vision, because this book had been hiding. I don't know where it was, buried somewhere, but somehow it landed on my kitchen table. And it was called 31 Days of Praying for Your Future Husband. And I think I got sadly, I got 10 days in and got distracted. Can't remember what I got distracted by, but I got distracted. And then I started focusing on the life coaching thing, never picked back up the future husband. And as I started to progress with the future life coaching business, while still doing all my other things, I somehow got down the road of thinking about what's next past the life coaching thing. Mind you, the Lord told me that I am not going to get to my next level of calling until my husband is with me, because I'm going to need him with me to actually get to the level I need to go. I can't do it by myself. But he did reveal that life coaching was going to be part of that. There's I don't know if it's going to be a second source of income or whatever that's going to be happening, but life coaching is part of that calling. So, I was like, okay. And then the enemy got in, and I started to think about past that. Well, okay, God, where are you calling me after life coaching? What is going to happen after I get married? Am I going to become a pastor like everyone keeps saying they see me as? Am I going to be a missionary? What are you having me to do? And I got silence. Every time I asked, I got silence. And I kept getting frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated. And then all of this stuff started happening to my family. And at first, I didn't think that I was frustrated until, like I said, things happened in my family that was personal. And I had a conversation with my mom, and she's like, "You seem upset." I said, "I am." I said, "I'm frustrated with God." And so I did the one thing that I always encourage you guys to do, is go to your people and talk. So through everything that happened, I wasn't able to actually sit down with my mentor that I've been sitting down with. Finally, I got to sit down with her, and she really helped me. She's like, "Okay, what's been going on?" She personally thought I kept canceling our meetings, or not canceling, but rescheduling our meetings because I knew my homework. I said, "Nope, that wasn't that." And I told her everything that happened. And she's like, "Okay." And I told her how I was feeling and if I had done something wrong. And she said no. And she helped me walk through some things and kind of got my mind kind of set back where it needed to be. But that lingering frustration was still there, and I still wasn't hearing anything from God. Mind you, I was hearing God perfectly fine for other people. Like, don't get me, like, he was still talking to me about other people and what I needed to go pray for them and like prophesy over them. He was still doing that. But for that one question, I still heard nothing. And so then I brought it to Derek, and he really helped me. And he put my life in 3 sections. He says, "Okay," he goes, "you have your family and you have all your situations going on there. You have here where you work, and Sonia's where you work." He goes, "That's another section." He goes, "And then you have your future section." He goes, "Which one is frustrating you the most?" And I said, "My future section," which he was a little surprised by because he said I'd be more frustrated with the personal family. And I said, "No, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Well, that I know is going to be just fine." I said, "But this part is frustrating because I'm not hearing God." And he brought up an amazing story where he's like, "Okay." He goes, "Remember Abraham and where Abraham had the covenant with God?" He goes, "He prayed. He didn't have a visitation from God for a while, and then he had the visitation where they did the covenant." He's like, Abraham had to wait all day for God to come back to finish the covenant. He's like, through that time of waiting, the enemy sent the crows and, I don't know, vultures to go and start eating the livestock and start eating the sacrifices that Abraham did for the covenant for God. But God showed up at night when Abraham was sleeping and finished the covenant out. He goes, "Right now the enemy is attacking and you're waiting." He goes, "But don't get so distracted with what's coming." He goes, "Abraham knew what was coming. He said he was going to have descendants, as many descendants that were in the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore." He goes, "So don't miss today's blessings because you're so focused on the future." And that really, really helped me to the point where I heard God again about me this time. And he was so loving, but very, very stern, to where he goes, "I told you to focus on your future husband, and you focused on yourself." That hit so hard. I was like, oh, dang. So don't let the enemy distract you. Don't lose focus. Because if the enemy can distract you, if the enemy can steer you in the wrong direction, you are ultimately delaying what God has for you. Because God's blessings and promises aren't ever going to change. If he's told you you're going to have it, you're going to have it. Because his words do not come back void. So if he told you you're going to have a child, you're going to have a child. If he told you you're going to have a house, you're going to have a house. If he told you you're going to have a future husband or wife, you're going to have a future husband or wife. Now it's all in his perfect timing. So don't get me wrong. Like, I just, especially when it comes to like the babies and the marriage, like if you're not married or have a child yet, just keep waiting. God's promise will come. Abraham had to wait for his promised child. Even though he tried going a different course, and he ended up having ended up making two countries hate each other, basically, from two nations. Don't lose focus. The promise is coming. And when that happens, repent and get back on track. Like I said, I have not sat down and recorded in 5 weeks, and I just kept eating at me. So that's why I just wanted to let you guys know what was happening, what was going on. And if anything you can take out of today's message is, don't lose focus, know your enemy, but also know what's inside you. For you have the authority. And again, don't blame everything on the enemy. Like I said, not everything of the enemy, not everything in the world, and everything that goes wrong is the enemy. Sometimes it is our foolish, fleshly choices, which just, we have consequences for those, which you guys know. So, I hope that blessed you today. I hope you understand and forgive me for not having a podcast in this past 5 weeks, but I will be back on schedule now. So, look out for next week, where we will finally have that message from 5 weeks ago that I was talking about of you were made for this. Okay, guys. See you later.